You've undoubtedly seen some of the incredible pro-Palestine protests, demonstrations, and disruptions that have taken place over the last few weeks. But what you probably haven't seen is the incredible amount of organizing and planning that goes into all this. These protests and disruptions don't just come falling from the sky. They're made possible by the efforts of hundreds and hundreds of people. We're here at the People's Forum in New York City for a planning meeting for the Shut It Down for Palestine movement, a coalition of organizations that's been calling for global days of action every week, each of which has seen over 500 actions worldwide.
And more broadly, the genocidal campaign that is launched by Israel and again orchestrated by the US, what's happening is that it is exposing the crisis of the imperialist world system. And we know that our role here in the US is a critical one, and that we have to continue to carry the struggle forward, and that we will continue to mobilize for Palestine until there is a permanent ceasefire and until all of our demands are met. So thank you, and I'm really excited to get to work today.
Started coming to these meetings like a couple weeks ago. I think this is my third or fourth. I had heard of the People's Forum before, but sort of in the periphery of my mind, and then I started seeing all the stuff that they were posting with Shut It Down for Palestine. Yeah, I'm Jewish, and I feel really strongly as that Zionism is bad for Jews and everyone else, and so that's why I'm here. We're taping to recycle posters.
It's my first time here. I heard about it through social media and through other friends that were attending as well. That's usually how I keep up with things that are going on. I don't live in New York City, so I come down and I make the trip from Westchester County. I think these spaces are really important. So yeah, I'm excited to be here today and to be with new people.
So we're researching the stories behind some of the 20,000 plus who have been martyred in Palestine over the past 50 plus days. Just to be able to better effectively spread their stories and continue to grow this movement.
Tonight we're talking to Leanne Fillihan, the education director of the People's Forum and one of the central organizers of the Shut It Down for Palestine movement. Thanks, Leanne, for joining us. So if you could start by explaining to our viewers what Shut It Down for Palestine is and where the idea came from.
So Shut It Down for Palestine is a call for coordinated days of action. And the idea for this came from the reality that's around us, actually. What we've been witnessing and what we've been part of is the fact that there's a growing movement for Palestine that is taking place and growing and strengthening of its own accord. People aren't waiting at this point for someone to tell them, go out for Palestine on this day or on that day. People are taking action for Palestine no matter where they are, in any way that they can think of. And this is a phenomenon that happens in history when there's a turning point, when people realize that something that's happening in the world is something that they can no longer accept. And I think that's what's happening right now. And so what we intended with the call to shut it down is to actually help people feel more confidence in the action that they're taking by saying, okay, on this day, everyone's mobilizing every single day, every hour, but on this day, we're all going to do something together. And we can all learn from each other. Here's some ideas that we can all share, and then we can measure it together. And people can feel the reality, which sometimes can be hard to feel, that they're part of something bigger than themselves.
Logistically, I mean, it's been really impressive to see 500 actions every single week, all at once. What does it take logistically to put all of that together?
Well, definitely, we're not organizing 500 actions, and that's the beauty of it. This is what we're doing is providing a way for people to share with each other what they're doing and to take confidence from each other. So there's a website where people can upload their action, people can find actions, people can kind of see the breadth of all the different actions taking place across the U.S. and across the world, so that they are feeling like, and their action doesn't feel like it's going into the void. I think one of the reasons why we're seeing so many sectors and so many people from all different backgrounds take action right now and join in the mobilization and build momentum is the reality that we are in, as everyone says, the belly of the beast. And this is a U.S. war against the Palestinian people because the Zionist project is an imperial project completely tied to and dependent on not only the U.S. political backing, but U.S. economic backing. And that means that under capitalism, every single sector of society right now is contributing to the Zionist occupation. And people are realizing that. They're not only realizing the connections to Israel, but they're realizing the way that U.S. capitalism is feeding death and destruction in Palestine. And that's, I'm sure, terrifying for the capitalists and the imperialists today, because that's something that, you know, once people realize that, you can't forget it.
To go back to something you spoke on earlier, that this came out of the November 4th march. You had people come from across the country to converge on one area and to show the size and the breadth of the Palestine movement in the U.S. But then following that, the Shut It Down for Palestine movement issued a call for people to basically organize in their own localities. And I think people might think that's sort of a minute difference or a minute detail, but it seems to me like a very important strategic decision to continue the momentum of the movement.
Sure. So the March on Washington on November 4 was a real show of strength. And I think it was extremely important also to show people that no matter what the propaganda was saying, no matter which kind of fear tactics, no matter how many threats came from which government office, people were ready to take action for Palestine. There were over 500,000 people on the streets that day in Washington, D.C., the biggest protest for Palestine in U.S. history. That happened, and we needed to also make sure that that's not the end. So the Shut It Down call was exactly that. There's 500,000 people who came out to Washington, D.C. If they go back to their context, they can organize at least 20 to 50 people, and the movement will grow exponentially.
A lot of people sort of shy away from saying definitively that this really could be the end of Zionism, the end of Israeli occupation, but this movement really does feel different. And in my mind, I mean, there really is a scenario. There really is, you could imagine a situation where people say, you know what, we're not going to go along with the day-to-day until this genocide stops, until the occupation ends. That feels like a really powerful idea to me. Where do you think this could go?
The scenario where the Zionist occupation actually does end is a possibility, and I think that what this movement has done is reminded people of that. It's shown people that the occupation of Palestine is not an inevitability. Just like U.S. domination, the U.S. capitalist regime of exploitation and oppression and war is not inevitable.